I want to start by just asking, before the research, before the public work, was there a moment where you saw something in the data or in a patient that made you think this changes everything? What's the secret to your success in what you're doing? My friend, Gary Brecka.
Well, so I read medical records for a living for almost 20 years. And I took those medical records, I put them into a what was called a probabilistic model to predict mortality to the month. And I would take and download the patient's history, 10 years of their medical records, 10 years of their demographic data, and we would essentially predict life expectancy to the month. And then based on that prediction, insurance companies and other big investment funds would make very, very large bets on how long that a person had to live. If you get a life insurance policy and they're putting $10 million or $20 million worth of risk on your life, they really don't care where you are on an actuarial curve. They want to know your specific mortality. And to get specific mortality, you need that person's data. And we would take their data and we would put it into this database. And if you want to know how good life insurance companies are at predicting death, just look at what happened during the 2008-2009 financial services crisis. Mm-hmm. We had 364 banks fail. Not a single life insurance company failed. So life insurance companies, annuity companies are very, very good at predicting mortality. And if I was to boil my entire career down to just a sentence or two, it would be that the reason why the vast majority of human beings are not living longer, healthier, happier, more fulfilling lives are for what we know Alzheimer's, for example, is now type 3 diabetes, right?
Wow.
It is insulin resistance in the brain. And the fallacy about Alzheimer's is that people are losing their memory. That's actually not true. They are losing access to their memory.
Wow.
And access can be restored. And so
I've never thought about it that way. That's huge.
Yes. Yeah. We never talk about restoring access. We talk about trying to regain memory. Once you accept that the memory is lost, you assume it's no longer recoverable.
The views, opinions, and statements expressed by our guests are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect those of Dr. Jason Littleton or the Concierge Doc Podcast. We do not endorse or take responsibility for any statements, claims, or perspectives shared in this content. Viewers are encouraged to conduct their own research and form their own conclusions.
Access to the information and materials contained in this podcast is at your own risk. The information contained is presented for the purpose of educating the consumer on a variety of wellness and healthcare topics. The information. Nothing contained is intended to be instructional for medical diagnosis or treatment. The information contained is compiled from a variety of sources. The information should not be considered complete and exhaustive and should not be in place of a visit or consultation with your own primary care doctor. To the Concierge Doc Podcast. I'm your host, CEO and founder of Littleton Concierge Medicine, Dr. Jason Littleton. Welcome to the podcast. Now, today's guest, I'm really excited about. I met this guest through my business mentor, Dr. Stacia Pierce. Dr. Stacia is the one who got me in the game of concierge medicine and introduced me to this very next guest. I would not know him without her. Thank you, Dr. Stacia. Here's the red carpet. This gentleman is the visionary founder of The Ultimate Human, is a renowned human biologist, biohacker, and longevity expert with over 2 decades of experience in analyzing human biomarkers. His unique approach combines the precision of science with the personal touch of individual wellness. Before creating The Ultimate Human, he served as a leading mortality researcher for the life insurance industry, where he honed his expertise in predicting health outcomes based on comprehensive data analysis. However, his passion lies not in forecasting lifespans, but actually in extending them, enhancing the quality and vitality of every life. The Ultimate Human is consistently ranked among the top 5 health and wellness podcasts, reaching and impacting thousands of lives through its powerful media platform. Through The Ultimate Human, he shares his deep knowledge and innovative strategies to help individuals navigate their health journeys. His work is driven by a profound belief in the power of informed, personalized health interventions to transform lives. With his guidance, the ultimate human continues to inspire and equip people to become the best versions of themselves, inside and out. Let me roll out the red carpet. I want to introduce to you my friend and world-renowned longevity expert, Gary Brecka.
How you doing, Dr. Littleton?
Welcome to the podcast.
Great to see you. And it's just such an honor to be on here because you're doing great things in this world too. And, before the podcast started, I said, there's more people that need our service than there are people to serve them. So I'm really excited to run this with you today.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Listen, it's an honor to have you on. I know a lot of my patients and community want to know some of these questions. They want to hear from you. I mean, they see you doing huge things. They see you, in your Instagram, on social media, on TV, and just to have this personal encounter, I think goes a long way. So thank you for that. Mm-hmm. I want to start by just asking you, before the research, before the public work, was there a moment where you saw something in the data or in a patient that made you think this changes everything, that set you on this path? Yes. I mean, what's the secret to your success in what you're doing?
Well, so I read medical records for a living for almost 20 years. And I took those medical records, I put them into what was called a probabilistic model to predict mortality to the month. And I would take and download the patient's history, 10 years of their medical records, 10 years of their demographic data, and we would essentially predict life expectancy to the month. And then based on that prediction, life insurance companies and other big investment funds would make very, very large bets on how long that person had to live. If you get a life insurance policy and they're putting $10 million or $20 million worth of risk on your life, they really don't care where you are on an actuarial curve. They want to know your specific mortality. And to get specific mortality, you need that person's data. And we would take their data and we would put it into this database. And if you want to know how good life insurance companies are at predicting death, just look at what happened during the 2008-2009 financial services crisis. Mm-hmm. We had 364 banks fail. Not a single life insurance company failed. So life insurance companies, annuity companies are very, very good at predicting mortality. And if I was to boil my entire career down to just a sentence or two, it would be that the reason why the vast majority of human beings are not living longer, healthier, happier, more fulfilling lives are for what we call modifiable risk factors. Modifiable risk factors are dietary and lifestyle changes, nutrient deficiencies, things that within their control, that if they knew how to change them, they were completely in their control to change them. And if you look at the status of healthcare in America, I also co-chair the MAHA action.
Yeah, love that.
If you look at the status of healthcare in America, we spend almost $5 trillion a year on healthcare. And what do we lead the world in? We lead the world in morbid obesity, type 2 diabetes, multiple chronic disease in a single biome,
right?
Infant mortality, maternal mortality. So we know that spending doesn't equate to outcomes.
Right.
So what is it that truly extends life? And the truth is, you can look at the big data, you can look at blue zone studies. What extends life are diet absent absent processed foods. Sorry for that. I don't know why it keeps doing these little memes. I can't shut them off. Sometimes hearts go up,
no,
sometimes
okay.
Balloons. It's so embarrassing. Sometimes I'm on really important meetings and
we're having
I'll do
fun
some
here
with my hands.
No, I love it.
I can't do it on command and fireworks go off.
Hey, this is what this is about. We're having fireworks today. So it's perfect.
One of your listeners that has some technical expertise, please tell me how to shut this off.
Yeah.
Right? If I do these little things, look at it.
I love it.
So I don't know how it works that way, but it's a diet absent processed foods. It's a whole food diet. It's not dogmatic dieting. There's no evidence that carnivore, keto, paleo, pescatarian, vegan, vegetarian, raw food extend life.
Yeah.
What extends life is the absence of processed foods. What extends life is quality sleep over a prolonged period of time. And what extends life is making mobility non-negotiable, making exercise non-negotiable. Those are the things that extend life. And we can talk about specific biomarkers and things like that. I'm happy to do that. But I just knew that humanity needed this information.
Yeah.
And so I abruptly left that career about 10 years ago. I started a functional wellness clinic in Naples, Florida. That just exploded. We exited that clinic in January. Awesome. And a few years ago, I started a media platform to just message to the masses.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Yeah. And I'm a subscriber to that. I mean, I think everyone should subscribe to that. I mean, it's huge.
Yeah.
It's changing lives. I think,
Yeah, I'll give your listeners a 50% discount code.
Thank you.
We'll just call it, the discount can be Jason.
All right. We'll take it.
And when we get off this call, I'll tell my staff to give everyone 50% off that.
Will do.
VIP
Thank you.
program.
That's so gracious of you. Thank you.
Of course.
I think I love what you said. I think when it comes to people's access to healthcare is a big issue. And what I do as a concierge doctor, I give people access and they have access to me. But most people don't have that. And a lot of times they're running into conventional doctors that are just giving them rudimentary, advice, and people want more than that. And so people want to know. I mean, now they can go get their own labs. There are places where people can get their own labs. They don't even need a doctor to do them. When we talk about biomarkers, what should people be looking for that can help them with their longevity journey?
Well, most labs are going to have like a basic panel, CBC, complete blood count, comprehensive metabolic panel, a lipid profile. They're going to have some basics in a lab. I think the three areas that are non-negotiable are the following. One is glycemic control. And what I mean by that is, what does your blood sugar and insulin profile look like? Insulin resistance is one of the first dominoes to fall in a whole series of metabolic disorders. And it is absolutely reversible and preventable, and it prevents a whole cascade of events. And human beings rarely, if ever, do multiple systems fail at the same time. Rarely does somebody have a mental disorder, gut dysbiosis, a cardiovascular issue, an autoimmune disease, multiple chronic conditions. What happened? At some point, one domino fell, and then everything else followed. Yeah. It's not like the spoke of a wheel where everything just goes out from the center of the wheel and goes wrong all at once. It might feel like that, but that's not what happens. One thing goes wrong that causes everything. So glucose, hemoglobin A1C, the 3-month average of your blood sugar, and your insulin level. That's a must-have on a lab. Yeah. The second is your hormone profile. So to be very specific for men, this would be luteinizing hormone, follicle-stimulating hormone, testosterone, free testosterone, the precursors for testosterone, which is DHEA, which is a nutrient, dihydroepiandrosterone, and then a protein called SHBG, sex hormone binding globulin. That's often overlooked. And what will make someone look like they qualify for hormone therapy when really they need to get this protein out of their blood that is reducing their body's capacity to produce this hormone or convert this hormone. So those would be, basics. And then the final one is nutrient deficiencies. There is a non-specific marker of inflammation called C-reactive protein, CRP. Yeah. I'm a huge fan of CRP. It's sometimes called high sensitivity C-reactive protein, HS-CRP. I'm a big fan of that. I'm also an enormous fan of looking at nutrient deficiencies. The vast majority of people are clinically deficient in vitamin D3, which is 25-dehydroxy on a lab. They're clinically deficient in vitamin D3. They're deficient in DHEA, which throws off their entire hormone profile. They have excess SHBG, which is also throwing off their hormone profile. And they look like their hormones are out of whack when the truth is they're nutrient deficient. If you have elevated SHBG, you can take a mineral called boron. If you have low DHEA, you can supplement with DHEA. If you have low vitamin D3, you can take cholecalciferol with vitamin K2. So very often, I'm a bigger fan of giving the body the raw material it needs to do its job rather than replacing the body's function. By all means, if you have primary hypogonadism and you cannot produce testosterone, then hormone replacement therapy can be life-changing. Right? There's a 2018 peer-reviewed study that was published in the Journal of American Urology, the American Journal of Urology, You can look up the 2018 study. If you go to that study, read down to line 13 and read from 13 to 20. All of the myths about hormone therapy have been dispelled, that it increases the risk of cardiovascular disease. It actually is the opposite. It decreases it. That it increases the risk of prostate cancer. That's patently false. It decreases it. Similar things have happened in female hormone therapy. There was a study called the Women's Health Initiative, which was entirely bastardized and misquoted to the public, which resulted in tens of millions of women missing out on hormone therapy that could have been life-changing for them. The FDA just removed the black box warnings from female hormone therapy about 2.5, 3 weeks ago. So I like to see this shift happening at the level of our governmental elites, CDC, FDA, Health and Human Services, National Institute of Health. But specifically to your point, those would be the biomarkers that I just mentioned that I would, at a minimum, look at. The other thing that I would do once in your lifetime is I would do a genetic methylation test.
Love that. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
The reason why I would do this, the reason why I would do this test is that the vast majority of your listeners right now, they are supplementing for the sake of supplementing.
Right.
They are not supplementing for deficiency. Unless they've seen somebody like you,
right,
gotten on Google or they've watching Instagram or TikTok, and they get convinced that ashwagandha or St. John's wort or CoQ10 or resveratrol or curcumin or turmeric, all of which are amazing, NAD, nicotinamide riboside, all of these supplements are amazing. Question is, what does your body need?
I love that.
And we believe this in plant physiology. You know, if you had a leaf rotting in one of these trees back here, or a leaf rotting in your palm tree in your yard, and you called a true arborist, a true botanist out to look at that leaf, they wouldn't even touch the leaf, right? They would core test the soil.
Right.
And they would say, you know what, Jason, there's no nitrogen in the soil. And they would add nitrogen to the soil and the leaf would heal.
Love that.
Human beings are no different.
Love that.
When we become nutrient deficient, you get the expression of disease.
So like patients should start off with taking the methylation test. That's probably a good approach because I believe in getting a lot of baselines, and that would probably be a great practice for physicians to start doing. And I think that's something that I'm going to also promote in my practice to make sure that they always take this test before we recommend any type of supplements.
And you do this test once in your lifetime. It's your genes. They'll never change. You never repeat the test, and you will never guess again for the balance of your entire lifetime.
Love that.
On what you need to supplement with, right? Because your body takes in all kinds of nutrients, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, proteins, fats, carbohydrates, all kinds of compounds. Not a single one of those is used by your body in the form that you take it in, without a single exception. Every nutrient, vitamin, mineral, amino acids, every single one of them gets converted by the body into the usable form. So think about how we pull crude oil out of the ground.
Yeah.
Right? You can't put crude oil into your gas tank because the car doesn't understand that fuel source.
Right.
So crude oil has to be refined into gasoline. Then the car can run. It's very same in human beings. You put all kinds of nutrients. For example, the most prevalent nutrient in the human body is folic acid. Mm-hmm. That's the most prevalent nutrient in the human diet. It's also an entirely synthetic man-made chemical. So we put folic acid into our body. Folic acid is absolutely useless until the body converts it into something called methylfolate. If you can't make this conversion, you have a deficiency. So the question is, what does that deficiency cause? Anxiousness, anxiety, poor gut motility. So now you have gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, irritability, cramping. You're told you have irritable bowel syndrome. You go to sleep at night, and as your environment quiets, your mind wakes up, so you ruminate at night.
Wow.
You have brain fog. You get a great idea in the bedroom. You walk to the kitchen. You kind of wonder what the heck you're doing in the kitchen. And you just live with these consequences sometimes for decades until you find the missing raw material. That's when magic happens in human beings.
Yeah, I think a lot of people really are missing out. And I'm going to be a huge advocate, of my patients taking this methylation test, because I think that's going to really cause them to hit the ground running and put them on a whole new platform. And now it's not guesswork in terms of let's take this supplement, let's take that supplement. We will know what supplements you need to take so that you can be in optimal health. And I love that. I love how you said that. A lot of the things that I see that my patients, or just patients in general, might have and deal with is insulin resistance, not being able to break that cycle, and then elevated cholesterol not wanting to take statins and really wanting through diet and exercise. But sometimes I think there can be a frustration where people are like, I'm exercising, I'm trying to eat right, but I'm not having that breakthrough. What would you say to them?
What I would say is get data, right? So let's give a couple of examples. I saw this thousands and thousands of times. You have a couple, they start intermittent fasting together, husband and wife, and husband's killing it, sleeping like a bear, getting ripped, losing weight, gaining muscle. He feels amazing. The wife's barely eating and she's putting on weight. She's waking up in the morning. She has a cup of black coffee. She goes to Orange Theory, goes hammer down for 55 minutes, 5 days a week. She's done that for 3 months. Not only hasn't lost a single pound, she's gained 6. So what the data will tell you is that her hormones may be out of whack and she's become estrogen dominant. And when you become estrogen dominant, you begin to retain water. And retained water looks like fat. It's not fat. It's water retention. And when you bring hormones back into balance, the body sheds the water and you go back to your normal weight. Also, just understand that diet and exercise is not a one size fits all. Some of the worst endocrine disasters I have ever seen in my entire career were young menstruating women that ate in too narrow of a feeding window.
Wow.
So when you get data, one of the things you're going to get is hemoglobin A1C. Yeah. You're going to see the 3-month average of your blood sugar. If the 3-month average of your blood sugar is 5.3 or less, you're not really a candidate for intermittent fasting. And why not? Because when you narrow that feeding window, your pituitary, which is the master puppeteer in the body, it's regulating metabolism, it's regulating your body temperature, it's regulating a female's hormone cycle, it's regulating the production of hormones, testosterone in a man. It's doing so many things. The pituitary is going to perceive that as starvation.
Wow.
And it's going to start to throttle back your metabolism. So now all of a sudden you see women that start these really aggressive intermittent fasting programs. Something called thyroid stimulating hormone drops. The pituitary starts to slow down the metabolism. Their T4 and their T3 tank. They start to get sluggish. They lose their motivation. They get cold more frequently. They're like, what is going on? Like, I'm barely even eating, right?
Wow.
So some of these women, I've seen women with hemoglobin A1C of 4.8, 4.7 start an intermittent fasting program, and it's a disaster.
Wow.
So really, knowing your body. Now, if you're insulin resistant, your hemoglobin A1C is above 5.5, 5.6, you're getting into the pre-diabetic range of 5.7. Intermittent fasting can literally change or even save your life.
Wow.
Right. So this is what I mean about data. I think you're on the same page. We need to get data or else we're just sort of guessing. We're like, well, what worked for my cousin and my sister and my husband and my in-law or my wife may not actually work for you. The biggest fallacy in all of modern medicine is that what goes into your body and my body and your listener's body is all treated the same way. Nothing could be further from the truth. So you see this with vaccine outcomes. Well, why didn't everybody that vaccine, die of myocarditis? Well, because some people eliminate spike protein better than others.
Wow.
Why doesn't everybody have heavy metal toxicity? Well, because some people methylate heavy metals better than others. I could take your entire audience who's listening to this podcast right now, and let's say that we fed them all the same amount of mercury-laden tuna fish for 90 days. At the end of that 90 days, say we took 100 people. A third of those people are going to have deadly mercury poisoning. A third of those people are going to have mercury levels that are causing some complications, brain fog, water retention, weight gain, confusion, poor focus and concentration. A third of those people are going to have no trace of heavy metal in their bodies at all.
Wow.
So how is it that they all got the same dose and they had different results? Because our body methylates. It processes things differently. It's really, It's really important to understand that we are all individuals. And so once you have that piece of data, now you're really armed with what works for you and what doesn't. Right. And there are a lot of men and women I've told to eat more and widen their feeding window.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people that I've said, if you like to exercise fasted, you need to take all 9 of the essential amino acids. You need to start the morning with mineral salt. So many of us are mineral deficient, right? I take a mineral salt every morning. I just add it to my drinking water. And I take an amino acid supplement, all 9 essential amino acids. And the reason why I do that is because, amino acids are not proteins, right? They are the building blocks of proteins.
Yeah.
And there's a fallacy out there that we can target direct protein in the body. You can't. We don't eat our nails to grow our nails. You don't eat your hair to grow your hair. But you think you can eat collagen to grow collagen. That's actually not true. All protein, regardless of its form or its origin, whether it's an egg, fish, chicken, meat, vegan protein, a hemp seed, all protein is going to become the same thing in the human body. It's going to become amino acids. And then those amino acids are going to go build all of these structures: collagen, elastin, fibrin, muscles, natural killer cells. So if you become an amino acid deficient, all the collagen in the world is not going to save you, right? So taking essential amino acids, in my opinion, is necessary. Mineral salts are very easy, like a Celtic sea salt. I take one called a Baja Gold sea salt. I mean, this is like a $15 bag of this will last you 5 years.
Yeah,
it's my cheapest biohack. And I spoke recently at a conference on bone density, osteopenia, osteoporosis. I was still shocked at how many physicians think that bones are calcium. Right? Our bones are not calcium. Our bones are calcium combined with something called phosphorus. Mm-hmm. These two join to make something called hydroxyapatite.
Yep.
Our bones are hydroxyapatite. In order for phosphorus and calcium to form hydroxyapatite, you need 12 minerals. If you're missing any of those 12 minerals, you will end up with osteopenia or osteoporosis. And if you look at cystic care living facilities all over the country, you'll find elderly men and women all over the country that have osteopenia and osteoporosis that have been on calcium supplements for 20 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Calcium is not the answer.
Yeah. Hip fractures, all sorts of fractures. And I mean, we're, ladies and gentlemen, we
used to call the
class.
hip fracture the triad of death. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And the big misnomer about hip fractures, by the way, just to touch on it for a second, is that, elderly people frequently fall and break their hips.
Yeah.
That's actually not true. What happens is their hip breaks and then they fall.
Wow.
It's a very important distinction there between the fracture causing the fall versus the fall causing the fracture. What happens is grandma is standing at the sink, maybe she's washing dishes or something, and crack, her femoral neck in the top of her femur, her leg bone, breaks and she falls. And they go, oh my gosh, grandma fell and broke her hip. No, she didn't. Her hip broke and then she fell.
Wow.
And this is years of mineral deficiency leading to the loss of bone density to the point where the skeletal system can no longer support its own weight. That's why it's a triad of death. There's no correlation just between a hip fracture and early death. There is a correlation between a fracture that causes a fall and early death. Right?
Wow. That's major. Yeah. I mean, this is.
So take a mineral salt.
What is the supplement that you recommend instead of just taking calcium and vitamin D for osteoporosis, osteopenia?
Yeah, I would. First of all, I wouldn't take calcium. I would take vitamin D3 with a vitamin called K2. Make sure that it has vitamin K2 because vitamin D3 is a calcium transport molecule, amongst other things. Yep. If you want the calcium to go into the bone and not the arterial wall, you add vitamin K2. And then you want to take a mineral salt. I take one called Baja Gold, BAJA Gold. Has all 91 trace minerals in it. Comes in like a liquid form. You just take a dropper, squeeze it into water. I add the amino acids to that. I add something called a hydrogen water tablet. I drop a hydrogen tablet in there. When it effervesces into hydrogen, I drink that back. Knock down inflammation, give your body all the essential amino acids, and give it all 91 trace minerals. And hydrate. I mean, you're just starting your morning off right if you just do that.
And you like hydrogen water, I believe. I've seen that.
Huge fan.
When we talk about the amino acids, you love the perfect amino. I just picked some of them out of sprouts and so started that with adding that to my workout. I mean, tremendous. I've got to, ask you this question. What's the biggest mistake you see people make when they try to biohack themselves?
They skip the basics.
Okay.
Right. They jump over the absolute foundational basics. And here they are. So nothing else matters until you have mastered your sleep. You eat a whole food diet. and you make mobility non-negotiable. So if you're not engaging in those minimal acts of self-care, you cannot sleep your way around a poor diet. You can't diet your way around not exercising, and you cannot exercise your way around either.
Wow.
Right. So there are 3 foundational basics that will cost you nothing that you need to master. One is sleep. Sleep is our human superpower. And most people sort of know that. They would probably agree with me, but they don't really know why.
Yeah.
And the reason why is this. So two incredible things happen when we sleep. One, during REM sleep, our body is assembling memory. So anything, learned memory. So let's say your listeners, listening to this podcast, or they're watching this podcast, and they took in this new information. Tonight, when they go to sleep, that prefrontal cortex and that hippocampus will connect, and it will become a learned memory. So we're actually assembling memory at night, right? So good sleep leads to good memory, right? It also leads to healthy focus, concentration, and great short-term recall. During deep phases of sleep, something called the lymphatic system activates. Now, in our body, we have something called lymph nodes, or the lymphatic system.
Right.
And the lymphatic system, I'm not explaining this to you, but I know you know this, but the lymphatic system is what eliminates waste from our body. And by waste, I don't mean stool or urine, I mean cellular waste, inflammatory compounds. All of the heavy metals get eliminated through there. Mold, mycotoxin, parasites and viruses. So this is why your lymph nodes swell when you get a sore throat. So we have a lymphatic system in the body, and it drains by muscular activity. This is why walking is probably the most underrated exercise in the world. Mm-hmm. People that live the longest walk the most.
Wow.
That is an absolute true statement. And but in the brain, it's called the glymphatic system. During deep phases of sleep, this glymphatic system, these channels open, and they eliminate waste from the brain. They eliminate all of the inflammatory proteins, cytokines, histamines from the brain. This is why after you get a good night's sleep, you wake up really refreshed. When you build waste in the brain, or you become insulin resistant in the brain, you're setting yourself up for early onset cognitive decline. We know Alzheimer's, for example, is now type 3 diabetes. Right?
Wow.
It is insulin resistance in the brain. And the fallacy about Alzheimer's is that people are losing their memory. That's actually not true. They are losing access to their memory.
Wow.
And access can be restored. Right? So, sadly, if you've ever had the misfortune, and I have, of having an Alzheimer's person in your family, you know that they do this thing called sputtering.
Yeah.
Where for weeks, sometimes even months, they might not recognize their own child, or they might confuse you for another child or an aunt or an uncle. And one day you walk into the room and you go, you know what, Jason, do you remember that time we took the boat out and Lily caught that fish and you were wearing the green vest and you slipped off the back of the boat, and with incredible accuracy, they have this moment of recall. That's proof that the memory is still there. They just lost access to it. And so
I've never thought about it that way. That's huge.
Yes. Yeah. We never talk about restoring access. We talk about trying to regain memory. Once you accept that the memory is lost, you assume it's no longer recoverable. That's not true. So, you asked about big, fallacies. So where do people start their journey? You start with sleep, exercise, and a whole food diet. And those are the 3 things that you should focus on. Stop bullying your sleep around in your schedule. 6 years ago, I sat my entire staff down and I said, from this day forward, we schedule all of our meetings and travel around sleep and exercise. If I wish I don't have my phone sitting on the desk, or I would actually show you my calendar. You could just tell me a date, April 15th, and I'll pull up April 15th next year. Sleep and exercise are scheduled on my calendar. If I take a speaking engagement, I don't speak early in the morning. If I speak late at night, I don't take a red eye. So just those small fundamental changes. After that, this is what I think a perfect longevity journey looks like. You do a genetic methylation test, you begin to supplement for deficiency. You do a basic blood panel, and you cast the net out into the water, and you pull it up, and you see what's under the surface. Am I insulin resistant? Am I have hormone imbalance? What are my nutrient deficiencies? These are easy, low-hanging fruit, and they will move the ball 85 yards down the field. Right? I mean, you only have 15 yards to cover after that. After that, you begin to get specific. I have an autoimmune condition. I have gut dysbiosis. I have anxiousness. I have anxiety. I have ADD, ADHD. And you start to address those with targeted supplementation. Sleep, whole food diet, exercise. Genetic methylation test, basic blood panel. Fix the deficiencies. Then get specific. Now, after that, if you want to start adding things like red light therapy, sauna, cold plunging, those are amazing.
Yeah.
And a lot of these don't cost us a lot of money.
Yeah.
If you have a tub at your house, you can put Tupperware containers in your freezer, freeze blocks of ice.
Yeah.
Put those blocks of ice into your tub, and you'll have a cold plunge for 3 days.
Wow.
By the way, studies looking at hot bathing versus hot sauna are nearly identical.
Wow.
Right? In terms of the amount of waste you eliminate into the water is similar to the waste you eliminate in sweat. So if you don't have the resources to buy a sauna, but you have a tub, take a warm bath and sweat into that tub at night. All of us have the resources to walk.
Yeah. Right.
Unless you have a physical impairment, but all of us have the resources to walk. But yet we don't make walking non-negotiable. We don't make exercise non-negotiable. Right. Sleep and exercise are the two most bullied things in our schedule. We will,
Incredible. And you answered the question I was going to ask you about my meds protocol, move, eat, drink, sleep. And I love that. And one of the things I wanted to ask you in particular is how many hours do you sleep? What is your sleep number?
So I usually sleep between 7 and 8.5. And I post my sleep scores to Instagram all the time. I just recently did with my wife, we did 14 cities in 18 days.
Wow.
And we circumnavigated the globe. We went Miami to Dallas, and speaking events in each location, Dallas to LA to Sydney, Australia, Sydney to Melbourne, Melbourne to Dubai, Dubai to London, London to Bucharest, Romania. And every morning in my time zone, I would post the sleep score. And my average sleep score was 88%. And the reason for that was I really have trained myself to sleep. I've sort of mastered sleep. And so a couple of my favorite tricks, which again won't cost you anything, is if you are somebody that's a road warrior, you travel frequently to other time zones, do not eat during your normal sleeping window.
Wow.
So preserve your sleeping window. And let me explain that.
Okay.
So I'm on the East Coast. I'm in Miami. This is where I live. So I'm normally sleeping between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. So my body is not used to eating between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. Eastern time.
Yeah.
So when I travel around the world, I never eat. I never feed myself between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. Eastern time.
Wow.
So what does that mean if I go to London, for example? London's 5 hours ahead. 6 a.m. East Coast is 11 a.m. London. I will not put solid food into my mouth before 11 a.m. It's not that hard. I also use fasting as a superpower. I take people through 3-day water fasts all the time. You want to talk about a full cellular metabolic reset.
Yeah.
And I don't care who you are, you can do a 3-day water fast.
Yeah.
Bone broths on day 1, mineral salts and 3 liters of fluid minimum for the next 2 days, bone broths coming out. It is an absolute game-changing breakthrough for most people.
Wow.
Improves their insulin sensitivity. People have lost 6-8 pounds in that time frame. Most of that is inflammation. A lot of that is fat metabolism. You're in a state of ketosis. It's very safe to be in ketosis. Your growth hormone secretion goes up by 10-fold without taking growth hormone. I mean, if body builders could get a 10-fold increase in growth hormone, they would do it every day. And it gives your digestion a break, gives your gut a chance to heal and seal. There's only a single cell layer in your gut, protecting your inside environment from your outside environment. It's very easy for that layer to get disrupted, which is called leaky gut. And we'd have to do 10 more podcasts to talk about the number of consequences that come from leaky gut, No,
that I love that. I love that answer. I have learned so much. So when we talk about how you move, eat, drink, sleep, what's your number one exercise you like to do as far as movement? I just want to list it for my audience. I ask everyone on the podcast how they move, eat, drink, sleep. What would be your number one thing in terms of movement? Walking?
Weighted walking.
Weighted walking.
Weighted walking. Yeah.
Okay.
So I wear something called an ion vest. Yep. AION. I put a weighted vest on. I zip it up. I'll do conference calls. If I walk with my wife, I don't take my phone.
Okay.
But when I walk by myself in the morning, and sometimes I'll go out and do a 5K with it on. If you add weight and compression to the same walk, you'll get 40% more out of that same time frame. So I'm always looking for ways to like biohack the same thing that I'm already doing. Like I use a hyperbaric from time to time. I put cameras in the hyperbaric so that I could do Zoom calls and Microsoft meetings. And there was a chance that you and I were going to do this from my hyperbaric today.
Oh, wow. I just put a hyperbaric in my office. We have one.
Did you really?
Patients. Yes, we have that.
Two ATA or a soft chamber?
No, actually, it's a hard chamber.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
because 2 atmospheres is great for that. Phenomenal. I mean, what that will do for cognitive function, neurodegenerative conditions, healing and wound repair, athletic recovery. They're amazing. So weighted walking would be my go-to. I travel with a weighted vest. When I travel, I actually wear a weighted vest. It looks like a vest, but it's actually 12 pounds.
Wow.
And by putting that extra weight on your body, you boost your metabolism. You fight something called sarcopenia, which is age-related muscle wasting.
Yeah.
If you compress the body and add weight, you really skyrocket the results. And so if you're somebody that can walk, you're not near a gym or you don't have a gym or don't have the resources to get a gym membership, get a weighted vest, zip it up, and go out for a 30-minute walk first thing in the morning. Your body morphic image will shift so quickly, it'll be astounding.
What's your favorite snack as far as the eating thing?
Raw yogurt, raw whole fat yogurt. So I'll take raw whole fat yogurt that I get it from a market here called Southwest Ranches. I think it's made by the Amish. It's really clean. It's a raw yogurt. I'll put grain-free granola in that, fistful of berries. Sometimes I'll put 2 teaspoons of honey in there. That's my Ben and Jerry's. It's amazing and it's very nutrient dense. So that's one of my favorite snacks. I'll snack on raw yogurt. I'll also snack on nuts. When I travel, I'll take grass-fed ribeyes, dried grass-fed ribeyes, and nuts. So that I don't eat airplane food, or I fast on airplanes unless it's a long an international flight.
And I think you already said this, but the D part of meds. What's your favorite drink? Is it hydrogen water, or is there something
hydrogen
else?
water? There are 2 types of people. There are people that don't know the science and they're unaware of the benefits of hydrogen, and there are people that know the science on hydrogen water. This isn't my discovery. For the last few years, I've been deep down the rabbit hole of hydrogen and its effect in the human body. It is the smallest, lightest element in the universe. 10% of your body weight is hydrogen. And it's the most prevalent element in the universe. It's harmless to human beings. But hydrogen is a selective antioxidant. Now, why that's so important is that vitamin C is an antioxidant. Blueberries are antioxidants. There are lots of things that are antioxidants. They reduce oxidative stress. The problem is you can over-suppress oxidative stress. Taking too many antioxidants is just as bad as not taking them at all.
Wow.
The body needs a balance between oxidation and what they call reduction. So, for example, if you didn't have inflammation and you worked out in the morning, your body would never heal. If you twisted your ankle stepping off a curb, your ligament would never heal without inflammation. Inflammation isn't all bad. Oxidation and free radicals are not all bad. In fact, almost every free radical in the body, with the exception of the hydroxyl free radical, almost every free radical in the body, hydrogen peroxide, an oxygen singlet, superoxide, has a benefit until there's too much, right? So taking it down too low can be very dangerous, just like allowing them to get too high. Hydrogen is the only antioxidant that we are aware of that restores balance. It restores something called redox homeostasis, which is perfect neutrality between oxidation and reduction. And so every morning I take 2 elemental magnesium tablets times 3. I throw them in water, take a scoop of perfect aminos. I take Baja Gold salt. I mix that up. I let that elemental magnesium effervesce into pure hydrogen gas, and I drink it back. And you will feel the lights come on. Wow. And that's the drop in inflammation. And I take one called H2 Tab. Also less than $1 a day. I used to use these really expensive hydrogen water bottles, but they break down a lot. They're really expensive. I don't use those anymore. I use a elemental magnesium tablet, which is magnesium in its elemental form.
Yeah.
Effervesces into pure hydrogen gas. Game changer.
Incredible. And, and you talked to us about sleep already. So I just, my very last question, because I want to be very appreciative of your time, is, you've worked with elite performers, athletes, CEOs, high achievers. What do you prioritize? What do they prioritize about their health that the average patient completely underestimates? And you've probably already said it, but I just wanted to ask that directly.
Yeah. So in all of those cases, self-care is non-negotiable.
Okay.
Right. So the reason why 82% of all autoimmune disease is found in women, autoimmune disease, 82% of the time is in females. And why is that? Autoimmune disease is not selective by sex. Autoimmune disease is selective by weakness. And what makes you susceptible to autoimmune conditions? Compromised immune system, right? So the greatest leading theory in aging right now is the theory of immunofatigue, a slow, progressive overwhelming of the immune system. There's nothing better than the God-given immune system to protect us and extend our life, right? So the question is, what are the things that feed the immune system? What are the things that build a healthy immune system? They're habits like exercise, sleep, and whole food diet. So I will tell you, I don't work with a high-performing overachiever, at least not after they work with me, who did not make self-care non-negotiable. There is some portion of the day that belongs only to them. So for me, it's the first 90 minutes of every day. It doesn't belong to my wife or my kids or my career or my podcast team. It belongs only to me. And then after that 90 minutes, I give the rest of my day away.
Wow.
Women have a tendency to develop something called caregiver syndrome.
Yeah.
Whereas they just innately, because they're meant to bear children, will put the needs of other people before the needs of themselves. So their spouse, their kids, their career, their girlfriends, their coworkers all come before them. And what happens is they slowly just keep putting themselves in the back seat until something dramatic happens. So I think that high performers and overachievers realize that sleep is our human superpower, mobility is non-negotiable, and self-care is something that just needs to be scheduled.
Love it. Gary, I want to thank you so much. I feel like I went back to medical school today. I mean,
really? Thank you.
I mean, I love everything that you said. It's been so helpful. I mean, you've really opened up how things are seen in regards to dementia, in regards to insulin resistance, so many aha moments in this. And I think my listeners, everyone listening to this podcast, they're going to listen to this and be like, okay, I need to reset. I need to do the methylation test. I need to do these biomarkers. I need to prioritize my health and make it non-negotiable. I really need to get on hydrogen water. I need to do these things that change my life. I think what you said has been life-changing. And one of the things I really wanted to do in this interview was come on, talk with you so that people could take this podcast and feel like their life has changed. And I know you've done that today. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on. I thank you for being my honored guest. Thank you for coming on the Concierge Doc Podcast.
You're welcome, Dr. Littleton. I hope to do it again in the future sometime.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 1000%. Listen, you guys, follow me on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Make sure you subscribe to the Concierge Doc Podcast. And look, everyone knows you. Where can they find you? And make sure that they get in touch with like all the things you recommend, your programs. What do they need to do to get in touch with you to follow how you lead?
Yeah, so they can go over to theultimatehuman.com. If they sign up to become a VIP member of mine, which is $97 a month, I'm going to give you a 50% discount. As soon as I get off this call, I'll tell my team to create a discount code under Jason for Dr. Jason Littleton. And you can follow me on Instagram. It's just my first and last name at Gary Brecka. Just my first and last name. And the podcast is The Ultimate Human Podcast.
Well, thank you so much. And again, thank you for being on. Please follow us.
You got it, my brother. Great talking to you, man. I hope your audience enjoyed this.
Thank you.
We'll talk very soon.